Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2023. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com. It is Sunday, August the 13th. It is approximately 7:15 on the East Coast. The Pittsburgh Steelers wrapped up their 13th training camp practice of 2023 earlier in the day. This is our 12th special edition of the Terrible Podcast, and joining me once again as usual to discuss what he observed back out there at Saint Vincent College in Latrobe on Sunday afternoon is Alex Kozora. Alex, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. I don't even know what day it is. Does not feel like a Sunday, but a couple more practices left. Off day Monday, then Tuesday, Wednesday, and an early morning practice on Thursday to close out camp. It is really flown on by, Dave.
Yeah, we're getting toward the end of this, and obviously coming off of the first preseason game on Friday night. The team had Saturday off, back at it on Sunday, and they're back in pads, but we'll start getting into the nitty-gritty in just a little bit, as we do at the top of every special edition of the Terrible Podcast here for training camp. We like to shout out our sponsor, and that's Lynn Testa and the fine folks at Touring Plans. Right, Alex?
Absolutely, Dave. Yeah, Len Testa Touring Plans have been very good to the site, very good to our training camp coverage for many, many years. Now, I've lost count of the number of years that Touring Plans has sponsored our Steelers Depot training camp coverage, but we thank them as always. If you got family with a little, trip planned to Disney later this year around the holidays, I've seen that quite a bit in my friend group. You should hit up Touring Plans and kind of schedule things and be able to have the best experience possible to Disney through Touring Plans. You can use their trip planner tool to show you the least crowded park to visit every day, customized touring plans for Disney's best rides, honest restaurant reviews, how to save on Disney tickets, the best hotel rooms to ask for, and so much more. You can go to the website touringplans.com. Their Twitter account is also Touring Plans. We thank them and Len Testa for their continued support of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage.
Absolutely, we do. Thanks, Len. All right, we got some housekeeping to take care of. Mix in a couple of previous injuries, along with a couple of new injuries, along with a transaction on top of it.
Yeah, a ton to talk about, and frankly, that first practice after the preseason game, I know that people probably care a little bit less about player performance because they've already seen these guys with their own two eyes, and so the injury aspect kind of becomes the dominating discussion point probably for these next couple of days. So yeah, from a housekeeping standpoint, player signed, that is Forrest Ryan, the linebacker. He wears number 46. He jumped into the team period right away. He will replace the injured Chappelle Russell, waived injured with a knee injury sustained, I think on special teams in that Friday opener. Not practicing today for the Steelers included Trey Norwood, Keanu Benton, Nick Witkowski, Duke Dawson, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi. Limited today through individual periods only. Keanu Neal. John Lovett is sort of kind of back. He was not in pads, but did some light work in individual session. Joey Porter Jr. was in full pads, but he did not work in team. And let's see, returning to practice. I don't know if anyone super notable there besides DeMonte Casey. He was full. That's good for him. Injured during practice, per Mike Tomlin, was Nate Herbig with a shoulder. I noticed Isaiah Dunn had an ice pack on his right knee. Toby Ndukwe hurt his wrist late in the day. Am I missing anything here important, Dave?
Did you hit Trey Norwood? Not
I did,
working?
yeah, I mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, he was doing some light jogging. He's slowly working his way back.
And what is it? What's Neal up to doing now?
He's individual. He's in pads. He's just not in team. So he's where Casey was, last week. And so Neal should be back, I think, before camp breaks.
All right. Did you see anything when it came to Herbig and how he got hurt there?
I did not. I apologize. I missed it. So I'm just going off of what Tomlin had to say. Shoulder being evaluated. That could mean a million different things. But if Herbig is going to miss some time, they only have 14 offensive linemen. As I've said many times, they're probably going to have to bring somebody in if Herbig is not going to be able to go these next couple of days.
And then Larry Ogunjobi has a boot on that right foot.
Yeah, I guess I looked for Ogunjobi. I didn't see him. Evidently, he was out there. Now, the boot can mean nothing. It can mean something more serious. KZ was in a boot to start training camp, and he came back within a week and a half, 2 weeks. So we'll wait and see. I think Tomlin said that Cam Hayward was sick today. I did not see Hayward out there on the field. Should note on Kwiatkowski, I've heard that the shoulder injury is not serious. He should only be out a couple of days. Benton, I think, is going to be just okay. A minor ankle sprain, it appears. And I know that Duke Dawson had a pretty serious looking injury in that game. He seems to have avoided a worst case scenario. He was walking around fine. He had one of those exercise stretch bands on his legs. I don't see anything that indicates this is a Corey Trey situation. I want to be careful not to try to diagnose him afar, but I'm not seeing any sort of signs that indicate he's going to be out for the season type of thing where he's going to go on IR tomorrow.
All right. Well, hopefully you are correct there. And, one last thing on Larry Ogunjobi, the thing that immediately ran through my mind, and I'm not pushing the panic button here because that could be absolutely anything, but that is the right foot that he had surgery on. So that was the first thing that jumped through my mind that I went and double checked was which foot was it at the end of the 2021 season with him. But hopefully it's nothing. Hopefully he just twisted something, and they'll probably take it easy on him this week. Obviously there's a game on Saturday this far out. I'm kind of wondering if he will play in that game, but time will tell, and we'll see what the rest of the week shakes out from an injury standpoint there. All right, now that we got all the loose ends tied up, and the thing about Chappelle too, he should clear waivers and go straight to IR. And if indeed that's a long-term knee injury, then he's probably going to be on IR for a while on a split salary there. All right, let's get to practice here, and let's look Kenny Pickett coming off of that good preseason game on Friday night. Let's start at the quarterback position and what you saw today. I think one thing that jumped out to me today is you saying that good back shoulder throw, I think to Deontay Johnson during this practice. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and expand a little bit more on Pickett and company.
He loves that back shoulder throw. It was later in team period, the third or fourth session, right shoulder. I think it was Peterson covering. It was a low throw, but really perfectly placed. And Johnson went down and grabbed it and got both feet in bounds before falling and rolling out of bounds. So I've seen that back shoulder throw a ton from Pickett, especially since about last week, to Robinson, to, of course, George Pickens, to Deontay Johnson. It is just so hard to stop as a DB. There's really not much you can do because you're just defending the 9 route. They throw back shoulder, going to be late finding the football. It's a very difficult play if it's thrown well, and Pickett throws it exceptionally well. 7 shots was tough for Pickett in the offense initially. Pickett started 0 for 3. Not any miserable throws, just some throws that were just off target, and obviously just could not put the ball in the end zone. So overall, I think Pickett's day was fine. Probably started worse than how it ended. He ended things with a 2-minute drill touchdown to Allen Robinson, who made a fantastic grab down the seam. He's going to do that a lot this year. So better end to how it began to Kenny Pickett, but overall a fine day.
All right, what about the other 2?
Trubisky, similar story. He was more successful in 7 shots. He also led a touchdown drive in the 2-minute session. There were a couple of bad reps that he had in between. It was a nice play by James Pierre, maybe a bit late of a throw from Trubisky to Calvin Austin that got picked off. And then the throw right after that, either Trubisky didn't see Jalen Elliott or just thought he could try to fit the ball in there, and Elliott came in and almost picked it off and had a pretty big collision on Hayward and broke the pass up. So I would say that for him, again, better end than how it began. Mason Rudolph, a fine day, continues to show that arm, had a great downfield 31-yard throw to Cody White down the left sideline on, I think it was on actually James Pierre on that play. No, it was on Elijah Riley. So Rudolph, that deep ball, that's his best asset.
All right, let's see. We'll move on to how about the running backs there?
Yeah, still not a ton to note overall. Some successful screens, one to Jalen Warren, a couple of good blockers out in space, beating the blitz, but that was Warren, just kind of more of a scheme thing than a Jalen Warren type thing. I'm seeing Connor Hayward continue to get reps ahead of Greg Bell and Darius Hagans. Hayward got 2 true running back carries today in that run period, that second team session, ahead of Bell, ahead of Hagans, and so I really could see, Dave, especially if injuries do occur, where Hayward's going to come in and play some running backs and maybe third down situation because he's got some size. He can catch. He can run routes out of the backfield, be a pass protector. And that's an area where McFarland might still struggle in pass protection. So I think you're going to see Hayward, even expand that versatility this year and include some running back duties in his arsenal.
One thing that has popped in my mind the last couple of days is, and look, I mean, with good reason, Anthony McFarland, the talk of camp, and obviously had a good preseason game the other day. But what if he can't get in on special teams, get himself on at least one? The thought crossed my mind about, is there a possibility that they kept the three tight ends, Freiermuth, Gentry, Washington, and obviously in addition to Hayward, and then Hayward serve as an emergency third back?
So you're saying keep just two true running backs and have Hayward be the third?
Right. What if indeed McFarland doesn't get that spot, because it doesn't feel like anybody else on the roster besides McFarland has a shot. Now they could obviously go outside the organization here, but if McFarland's not that guy and they don't go outside, could they get away with just Hayward in that role? I mean, he had a decent share of carries at Michigan State,
Sure. Yeah, he was kind of the guy until Kenneth Walker transferred over from Wake Forest. I've had that thought as well. I can't rule that out. I just think it's maybe a little too short where you might be more limited, where if you lose a running back and you felt like Hayward had to play more running back, maybe you can't do some of the stuff with him that you would normally like to. Like I said, I mean, I think Hayward will see some time back there, but I think Pittsburgh would like to do it on their own terms as opposed to having that emergency situation. So I'm not going to rule it out. And I think I'm growing on the idea of Hayward seeing some backfield action. I just don't know if they're going to go two true running backs and Connor Hayward as that third string guy.
All right, and a little bit more fullback work for Kendrick Green after the biggest surprise coming out. One of the bigger surprises maybe coming out of the game on Friday night was the actual fact that he didn't play any fullback.
Now, how many offensive snaps did he play? I mean, he played a fair amount in this game. So, I mean, obviously when he's playing.
But he was out of the game for a little bit as well too. Now he did come back in as part of, I think, that final offensive line combination overall. But he logged, how many snaps did he log in that game? Let me see if I can find
30 something. I'm
27,
guessing
27.
Okay.
And
yeah,
and 5 on special teams.
Yeah, that was all the field goal protect team. I mean, yeah, I was surprised too, and I plan on writing something to that effect. I think Pittsburgh needs to play how they practice. If you're going to do it in practice and dedicate the time, let's at least see it in a game. Not saying you have to be married to it, but go out there and test it out. Same with the pony stuff that they do. But yeah, Green actually was not part of the individual period with the running backs today. All last week, he would go with those guys early in drills and then make his way over to the offensive linemen. Today, he was just with the O-line the entire time, but still got some fullback action, caught a pass, had a stiff arm on James Pierre. It was a good play by him. So stay tuned. I mean, obviously, first and foremost at center, issues there in game, clearly. I thought he actually had a decent day in terms of his O-line, D-line work in 1v1s at center. So that was a small, very small, but encouraging step. But we'll see if fullback ever happens inside a game.
All right, let's stick with the offensive line and go there next. And he was the second team center, was he not?
He was, but I do want to just kind of caution. He kind of, in some situations, almost has to be because he hasn't gotten work at guard. And so if Herbig was always second team center, then you're kind of running out of guards right now to put in there. I don't know if I think Herbig got some center work. I know McCollum got some center work as well. And then obviously Herbig went down with the shoulder, so we'll keep an eye on that. I don't want to fearmonger, but man, if Herbig's going to miss some time, then this team might be in some trouble. They're going to have to go looking for some offensive linemen.
I tell you, people are tired of me talking about it. I looked over at PFF today at all the centers to look at some of the backup centers and the grades to maybe keep in the back of my mind these next couple of weeks. I have to go look at a couple of preseason games or something like that. I still wonder if that ends up being the direction that they go to find them a backup center. And yeah, I thought Herbig overall, I thought he did okay at center. Look, I didn't think really anybody on the offensive line in that game Friday night just left my my mouth dropped to the floor as far as positive play. I mean, I thought there was a lot of consistent play. Overall, I thought that Cook represented himself a lot better than by watching the all 22 than I remember watching the TV tape. So I thought he represented himself really well. And I think in us talking on the podcast the other day, I said, don't be surprised that Jaquamo Okorafor was the lowest rated starter of the bunch. Now, obviously, they only played the one series and all, but indeed that was the case. He had to, and people say, why do you quote PFF? I mean, it's just something to look at to see if kind of it matches some of the stuff that you see on tape. I take PFF for what it is, but I think there's a lot of good on PFF as well too. I was just curious how the grades were going to come out the way that TV tape was in my head, and ended up being exactly the way I thought it would. All right, walk us through the rest of the offensive line.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention Dylan Cook, and it's funny you say that. I put in my notes before we jumped on here. I might do a film room on Dylan Cook because I thought he had a good game, and I thought he had a good practice today. Some of the 1v1 situations, even against, I think it was Herbig, but also some on Toby and Dukeway, just the size, the patience he has, the length that he possesses, and just some of the more nuanced, handwork in terms of flashing a dead hand to get guys to try to bite and snatch and trap on and Dukeway to put him in the ground. So I think Dylan Cook is a serious practice squad option at offensive tackle. There might be something there a bit longer term with him, but just overall some really good battles with Nick Herbig and Broderick Jones and Spencer Anderson. Anderson, their athleticism jumps off at you. Their quickness of their feet and how quickly they can seal the edge and steer guys upfield. I think that Herbig had a couple of wins, had a really good cross chop on Broderick Jones, but just kind of seeing the athletic makeup of those two guys, Jones and Anderson, has been fun to watch. Anderson getting left tackle and left guard work today, sometimes in the same period, where he gets one snap at left tackle, next snap at left guard. I want to see this guy get some center reps. I think maybe if Herbig misses time, the door's going to open for Anderson to get some center work. I don't know how well he's going to do it. A rookie in the middle is asking quite a bit, but I think it's time to give Anderson some look in the middle.
And Matt Canada was asked about that earlier in the day and said in effect that they haven't gotten to that yet and don't know if they will get to that. But as you just said, if Herbig is going to miss some time, it'd be right ahead of this second preseason game. It would be the rest of this week would be an opportune time to get him in there to see some snaps at training camp, and then let him play a couple of series in the game later on. Possibly. So, and you said he mostly worked at left tackle and left guard today?
Yeah, maybe entirely there. And again, sometimes it'd be like, one snap, he'd come in at left tackle, the next snap, they kick him to left guard. So he was interchanging between those spots today. But I mean, if Herbig misses, I mean, you have enough centers where you don't have to put Anderson there. You can go Cole, Green, and McCollum, but I really want to see Anderson. He's played everything else but center so far. I think he needs some time in the middle.
And in the game the other night, he played right tackle, right guard, and left guard in that game. But they really moved. They used eight different combinations in that thing, and I think Dylan Cook was the only player to play both tackle spots. If I think if my notes are correct on that there. So interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they roll the lines out in this second because you only got 3 preseason games here, and snaps dwindle in a hurry because you got to get your starters working all like that. So it will be interesting to see how they roll out these lines in the second preseason game, and if what you're saying about Anderson, I mean, we might see Anderson get some left tackle snaps in this game.
Sure, he's worked it, pretty hard during camp. I mean, he opened camp as the right tackle, but played a lot of left tackle last week as they start to move these guys around, played there today. So I'm sure at some point Anderson will see his left tackle work.
Tell me real quick about that battle between Broderick Jones and Nick Herbig.
Yeah, there was some really good 1v1 reps. If I can pull up my my notes here to kind of take you through a couple of them.
Those two also are, I guess, roommates as well too. So they I think Jones talked about that after practice as well too. So they study the reps that they have against each other later in the evening, in the dorm there and all like that. But it looks like both guys are highly competitive and really enjoy going up against each other.
Yeah, and that was evident today. Just some of my smattering of notes here in the 1v1 O-line, D-line. Jones, I have winning one, initial punch a bit wide, but able to steer Herbig inside a little bit later in the rep there. Another seal of Herbig upfield. Last rep, Herbig was able to swim and shed Broderick Jones. I think that Herbig got him, like I mentioned earlier, on a cross chop somewhere in my notes. So good battles between all those guys today. It was Jones, Anderson, and Herbig, really the most eventful names in that O-line, D-line drill. And again, I thought Dylan Cook handled himself pretty well.
All right, for time purposes, let's wrap the wide receiver and tight end groups into one here.
Yeah, I don't have a lot on tight ends. Don't know Washington. That touchdown end practice got wide open over the middle. I don't know how you forget about the 6'7", 270 guy, but he got wide open there and had a touchdown, I think also in 7 shots, I want to say. Let me double check my notes here. I believe that Washington did have that. Maybe it was Des Fitzpatrick. I'm not 100% sure. Wide receivers, Allen Robinson, great catch in that 2-minute drill, over the middle, caught the ball off the ground, before it hit the ground, basically off the ground, but it was a good catch. And so Robinson making those tough catches between the numbers, that's been his MO the entire training camp. And it was the Gunnar Olszewski show in that 2-minute drill. I think Trubisky hit him for all but 1 or 2 of his completions on their scoring drive. And so Olszewski, the occasional drop, had one hit him in the chest over the middle today. That happened on Friday Night Lights as well. But when he's not having the occasional clank, he's a really good practice star.
I think you noted a Austin jet sweep today, at least one of them.
Yep, 21 yards, right sideline. That speed is real. Get him out there in space. I want watching back the All-22. I know we'll talk about that more tomorrow on the Monday podcast. But that jet run, if the defense doesn't shift and flow with Austin, and he has a step to the edge, he's going to win that step to the edge. And so 17 yards in that game, and then another 6-yarder, and then 21 yards today. That is a real threat off the edge.
If you can use that early in the game and have success on it, and get teams to say, you better not come crashing down. Yeah, you can widen the front a little bit.
Mess with their eyes, 100%.
That way, and if you widen that front on them, then that's going to present some running opportunities, in the middle of them ends as well too there. So I know people hate hearing that, but this team, what did they run? 35 jet sweeps or something like that last year, I think, in total, and they averaged like 5.3 yards per carry. And a lot of people only remember the ones that go for nothing for the most part. So it wasn't like it was awful. You just wish you had better personnel at times to be able to run it, other than a Gunnar Olszewski or a Chase Claypool or that kind of thing. And if they have a healthy Calvin Austin to be able to do it. Now look here in the same breath, and we've said this several times, you just can't bring Calvin Austin in a game and run jet sweeps with him,
Sure.
But I mean, if you use that early in a game and you have success with it, you can make a defensive coordinator really think twice about the rest of the game plan there.
And that's the point of the Canada offense. In theory, it's supposed to be, again, kind of 49ers like, where there's a ton of constrained plays. Everything looks the same. The defense can't tell what's run, what's play action, what's boot, what's the jet, what's the fake. I mean, it all looks so similar, and that's what a constraint play is, using one play to set up another, and just same formation, same concept, working something differently off of it. So hopefully that can be a weapon. Time will tell, but Austin certainly shows that potential.
Is Hakeem Butler just an also run right now?
I thought he had some decent tape on special teams, going back through it last night at Gunner, but I just don't see the path there to the 53 with Olszewski having a good camp, and then of course what Boykin can do on special teams. So I can't rule out practice squad, but nothing matches the initial excitement of him signing that was evident back in whenever that was, May. I haven't seen enough that tells me, this guy's going to really make a hard charge for the 53.
All right, let's move over to the defensive line.
I want to talk about Isaiah Loudermilk. I know Mike Tomlin spoke about him after practice today. I think it's been a good camp. I think his hand use has gotten better. I think he's a more, at least, efficient pass rusher. I just think some of that lack of athleticism hurts him. There was one really good rep. He swam. I forget who it was. It might have been either Dunkel or Kendrick Green and O-line, D-line, and he was able to swim and went off the line. He tries to turn and corner and get upfield, and he loses his balance and falls. And that's kind of the essence of Isaiah Loudermilk, who might be decently technical. I think his hand use has improved, but does he have that lower body kind of flexibility to turn the corner and be a good athlete and move in space and really, get home as a pass rusher? I just don't know if it's quite there. But again, this D-line battle's been ongoing. There were a lot more chances for younger guys today to get reps, with Benton, a young guy, but he was out. Hayward's out, and Ogunjobi's out. So a lot of reps for Leal and Loudermilk and Adams. Fehoko getting extra time. So I thought Jonathan Marshall had a good run stop in that team period, in that run period. So kind of a mixed bag today, but Loudermilk's the guy in particular I'm really watching pretty closely.
All right, let's go to inside linebackers. You had a really good video go up on YouTube and on the site concerning. I think you're getting a little bit more comfortable with this linebacker room. As you know, far more comfortable than you were even after this team had signed Holcomb and Landon Roberts during the offseason there. So go ahead and talk about what you saw today and what you're feeling about the inside linebacker room.
Yeah, I would just say overall, my feeling is you're going to see a rotation of Holcomb and Roberts and Alexander, and you've seen some more mixing and matching, especially as Alexander gets a couple weeks in the system and a bit more comfortable, and he was getting some first-team reps, so you saw it was Holcomb and Roberts. You would see that it would be Roberts and Alexander, and I'm sure at some point probably Holcomb and Alexander in my notes as well, so it's kind of been a three-man rotation there. From the game, just the energy, the physicality, the run defense coming downhill, filling their gap. No hesitation. You know, you didn't have that last year with Devin Bush. I mean, Spillane was kind of that guy, but I think you're seeing that even more from Alexander. And it was weird that Roberts only played 2 snaps in that opener, but even in those 2 snaps, you saw him come downhill and fill his gap. And so Holcomb isn't quite that guy, and he, I think, was not particularly great in that opener. There were some missed tackles, but even just him, fitting the run, you're seeing stuff you didn't really see consistently last year with this inside linebacker group.
Yeah, and Terrell Austin spoke to the media early in the day, was asked about Mark Robinson, and this is, I guess, this is kind of the first time we've really heard him asked about Mark Robinson since he made those earlier comments in the offseason there, if I'm not mistaken. He says he showed that, called him, he's a rundown guy, really good. Said he showed that last year towards the end of the year, needed some work in the pass game and some different things. And so he's doing better at that, and he just continues to improve. He still makes some mistakes like most guys do, all of us do, but I think he's really dialed into it and really working at trying to become a complete linebacker, not just a one-dimensional guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's not inaccurate. I mean,
right.
He's never going to be a great coverage guy. I kind of have the joke. I think there's like 2 good coverage linebackers in the NFL, how tough those tasks are against these wide receiver, power forward tight ends and these super athletic running backs. That's just, it's hard to be a good coverage linebacker. I'm sure Roberts will continue to improve there, but he's always going to be the hammer. He's always going to be the rundown. He's a Landon Roberts. I mean, he's a Landon Roberts, who's a little bit younger. I mean, that's basically his game.
All right. Anything else at inside linebacker? Hopefully Kwiatkowski can get back. I don't know if he'll make it back by this weekend or not.
I'm hoping so. I've heard it's just a couple of days for him, but we'll have to wait and see. Tanner Muse, more snaps for him, more for Mark Robinson. Really bummed about Chappelle Russell. I thought he had a good camp. Not that he was going to push for a 53 spot with how crowded it was, but just for him to get so close to a game, get into the game, but not get a snap on defense, that just sucks for him.
All right, outside linebacker, outside of Watt and Highsmith and really Golden and Herbig at this point, talk about the rest of the depth chart.
I wish I had more to say. I just don't have a lot of commentary on it. I guess Roche's been okay. I mean, I don't want to spill into Monday conversation, but Perales on tape, I think he's lost some reps today, and I don't think he was particularly, I mean, as you said, kind of showed some effort, but I didn't really see anything as a pass rusher in that game. Just he kind of felt slow. He felt slower than I thought he was in that game. And
he played like he's thinking too. Yeah.
Yeah, that may be it. And then in Dukeway, he's had his ups and downs, but I just don't see a lot with that group behind. Herbig was kind of the story today with some of those great reps in O-line, D-line, and winning and failing and learning and getting better. But beyond that, my notebook's kind of empty.
All right. How about the cornerback position? And some interesting comments about James Pierre from Austin as well too. Alex, who is the 4th cornerback on this team?
I mean, from the outside perspective, it's probably James Pierre, but I'm kind of with Terrell Austin. My big critique of Pierre for the last couple of years has been the inconsistency, and that's what Austin basically drove at today, ups and downs. I mean, there can be some really impressive plays. Pierre had a great break on the ball on a corner route to Austin that was thrown by Trubisky and picked it off, but you've seen him struggle as well. Now, I don't know how much Austin is blaming him for the touchdown allowed in that Bucs game. I really think it was a great throw and catch from Mayfield to Palmer, but You just see the ups and downs of his game. And Austin essentially saying, is this guy ever going to be more than just special teamer, James Pierre? Can he be, starting cornerback, rotational cornerback, James Pierre? In the skill sets there, Dave, but at this point, he's a year 4, year 5 guy. If he's still at that point of being inconsistent, it's probably always going to be who he is. And so I don't know if he's ever going to really even out his game.
And we saw what the market said about him, and they didn't restricted tender him. They took their chances that way, and that paid off. Came back on a 1 year, little over $1 million contract there. So that speaks volumes not only of what the Steelers thought about him during the offseason, but other teams around the NFL I think as well too. It does sound though, if you parse out Austin's words, that at worst he would be cornerback number 5 because of the special teams ability. And once again, if you're talking about outside guys and outside guys only, that leaves you what? Peterson, Levi Wallace, Joey Porter Jr. And if it's not Pierre, who would that be?
I mean, there's some interesting talent. Luke Barku's got a nose for the football. Marjorie Harper's been really good against the run, and he's got the size and length Pittsburgh's looking for. But I think Pierre will still make this team at the least for what he can do on special teams, and he does have that in-game experience, which can be useful if you lose a corner in-game. It's not a guy stepping into his first or very few first NFL snaps, and so it's a guy that's been in the system. I hesitate to say trust, but a guy that has been in your system and can hopefully go out there and do his job on a baseline level.
All right, and with Duke Dawson down, it's now, I guess when Peterson's not in there, it's Riley and Chandon Sullivan for the most part, right?
Right, and I didn't see Peterson kick inside. He did do some safety rotation work in the third down period, the dime packages that Pittsburgh was in, but yeah, it was Sullivan working with the ones. He had a couple good breakups in the 7 shots period. Elijah Riley came in behind. I think Riley fits what Pittsburgh's looking for better, but Sullivan has done well. I don't want to be quick to dismiss him either, and I'm not sure what the separation will be between those two guys. They are kind of different styles. Sullivan's not that physical hitter, but he's probably a better coverage guy than where Elijah Riley's at.
All right, safety. Welcome back, DeMonte Casey.
Yeah, good to see him back. He was getting working team. He got the first couple reps in 7 shots, and I think they're still easing him back slightly. I think he took the first 2 reps in 7 shots and then gave way to Kenny Robinson, but that's just them not trying to put too much on Casey's plate. He worked in team throughout the day. Minka Fitzpatrick had a great breakup on the first play of practice today. Pickett trying to find Deontay on a slant, and Fitzpatrick came in and batted the ball away. Beyond that, I think Trenton Thompson, I've talked about him some. I think he's probably a little reckless and aggressive as a run defender coming downhill and taking some bad angles, but there's some ball skills. Had 2 breakups today, one on Darnell Washington, another on Anthony McFarland. Had that pick in the game, which was a great read and break on the football to pick off, I think, Kyle Trask. And so I think Thompson's a guy that has that practice squad potential.
Who is the other new safety? Isn't there
Jalen Elliott?
Yeah, Elliott. What's a 4-1-1 on a few practices with him?
He can hit a little bit. He's not afraid to throw his weight around. Not a particularly big guy, not as big as Thompson, but he's aggressive. He kind of, I think, tried to gamble in the game there and gave up a fairly big completion his way. Not a guy that I think is gonna stick around.
All right. Anything on special teams today?
No, they were working, kick return, just some individual stuff. Really not a whole lot to note there. I'm sure we'll talk about special teams a bit more tomorrow. One just a general note for the DBs. Chris Wilcox actually got more reps at left cornerback today, taking kind of where Joey Porter would get some of those snaps in. I don't know what that means, if I should read into that or not. Sometimes these guys are, what side they play on is kind of where they come in. But Wilcox has played some safety, played some corner. It just seems really small. I don't think he's really made too much of an impact, but maybe the coaches like his classroom work because he's gotten some extra opportunities.
They list him at 6'2", though, don't they?
Really? Is he that big? Is that what his pro day?
I don't know what his pro day is, but I know the Steelers list him at 6'2".
Really? I might be wrong. I mean, he came in. He's listed 6'015", but his arms are pretty short, 31 and 5/8. So I don't know. I don't see a particularly big guy out there whenever I look at him. Maybe that's because I look at Porter and all of them, and they just are towers.
Yeah, look, 6'015" according to pro day, 198. His arms, what are his arms? I don't know.
31
and 5.
5/8.
Yeah. So that's definitely not Joey Porter length. But who is when it comes to arms like that? Okay. How about you've already kind of went through 7 shots a little bit. Take us through real quick the 2-minute portion at the end there.
Yeah, it's all in my notes here on Steelers Depot. It was Pickett tucking and running on his first play, and then short underneath throws to Robinson, to Harris, then kind of a weird whistle dead play. We'll call it an incompletion. Then Pickett found Pickens for 17 yards, and then a touchdown to Allen Robinson from about 15 yards out down that left seam, left middle. Or really, again, nice dive and grab by Robinson. Trubisky coming in, complete to Washington, and then a bunch of completions to Olszewski for 18, then incomplete to Olszewski, then complete to Olszewski for 10 and 15, and then finally hit Darnell Washington for about a 2-yard score open over the middle. So both offenses getting it done today.
All right, and you will be back out there. Let's see, the Steelers are off on Monday. You will be back out there on Tuesday. We will have a regular edition of the Terrible Podcast. Monday, we'll talk more about the game and the All-22 tape, so that ought to be a lot of fun when it comes to that. Let me tell you this. Let me personally thank you so far for the coverage that you provided so far in camp, because as usual, I had a pretty good sense in my head of kind of what to expect in this first preseason game overall. Now, obviously, you go through the thing of who's on the field at one, trying to get your bearings of who's where and who gets switched out on the series and all like that. But I didn't find myself overly surprised at really a lot of things. Now, it wasn't until this morning that I was able to go back and look at the line rotations that they used and that kind of stuff. But even that, none of it was really looked foreign to me overall. And once again, I came out of that game thinking, man, the only thing I'm really surprised at is that Kendrick Green didn't get any fullback snaps there. So you are on target once again, and I certainly appreciate that. And I know I imagine a lot of our listeners appreciate it as well too. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to make one quick note here from the training camp stats. I know I normally do them on off days. I think I want to do some more film rooms the next couple of days. So the training camp stats will be a final version after camp breaks. And so Friday, Saturday, weekend will probably be training camp stats. So if you're looking for them, I apologize for the delay, but just from a workload standpoint, I'm just going to do just the last one after all these practices wrap up later this week and have one final training camp stats recap.
All right, that requisition is approved. So with that, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button upper right navigational bar. And until Monday morning, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2023 with Dave and Alex.